wrong, it ain't all bad. I love the crazy fads, like England always buggering up, but you know we're gonna win the World Cup. I'm gonna start the old nation, put myself for preservation. I'm gonna start the old nation, put myself for preservation.
Keep the red flag flying here.
And welcome, pop pickers, to another edition of Political Unmuted. It is so lovely to see all those familiar names on the comments stream. Keep the comments coming in. Remember, it's a safe place here. You can say what you like, and we'll treat it with respect.
Although the Labour Party may be watching.
More of that later. More of that later. We have with us tonight a fabulous panel for you to listen to their comments. We have, as always, the boss, the hero, the Superman, Paul Daly. Yo!
Hello.
And we have, as always, that 999 telephonist, Jane Strange, ready to take your comments. Jane Strange! Yay!
Hello.
And we have a guest tonight, sort of Mark Lungley stepped in at incredibly short notice. It's so good of him. Hiya, Mark.
Hi, John. Great to be here. It's always good to be on the left-wing version of Question Time.
Yes, well, at least we get an airing. You will be unfamiliar to some of our listeners. Mark, tell us a little about yourself, if you would like to.
Okay, well, I'm from the West Midlands, the Black Country, to be precise. Some of you might have seen me with a flag behind me occasionally. That's the Black Country flag. Some people have called me the photographer of the left, but I say that is actually another member of Socialist Think Tank. That's Neil Terry. But you'll often see me and Neil running around TWT, taking photos. Type 1 diabetic, and I do the West Midlands Socialist Think Tank. And so if there's anybody from Birmingham, the Black Country, Wolverhampton, Coventry, we want to get some more local stuff done. And I'm sure Jane would probably talk about the South East as well, wanting stuff there as well. We need to get the regions up and running.
Yes, thank you, Mark. Sorry, I wasn't sure if to come in there.
Yeah, go for it, Jane. You know.
Yeah, so myself and Alison run Socialist Think Tank South East, and we are looking to do more stuff for that. So yeah, if anyone is interested, just let us know. And we have got Socialist Think Tank London as well. So just message us or let us know when we can get you involved.
Did I disappear?
You froze there, John, but it was perfect because the conversation just went on. So you're back. Everything's fine.
Thank you so much. Talking away to a frozen screen. Let's try to move on. Paul, moment of your week.
It's Trans Awareness Week, so I think we should be aware of trans people. That's why there's a little extra logo up there in the comment section on the screen. By being aware of them, what we need to do is aware that there are trans people in the world. They do have a really, really high, in comparison to a lot of other groups, rate of death by suicide, mental health problems, and it's so much better now that people are so much more included. And also, I think we need to remember that just like any other group, whether that's a group of people with a certain skin colour or a group of people with a certain religion, they are individuals. Do not generalise the behaviour of one person from that group to all of them, because that's a kind of ism. Don't do the racism. Don't do transphobia. Don't do any of those things. Don't generalize towards a group, and just be let's be sympathetic and caring about our trans siblings, because I don't understand what it's like to feel like you're in the wrong body. It must be absolutely appalling. So yeah, let's accept people for who they are and not judge a whole group of people based on the actions of one or two.
Thank you so much. Absolutely right. If I can comment on that, which I sometimes do, life is so short and it disappears so quickly. And where what you want to be does no harm to any other human being, I would say just be what you are. And so it's the job of the rest of us to accept you. If that involves harm to other people, well, then you stop yourself. But when it comes to whom you're going to love and how you're going to be, we ought to be more accepting than we are. Jane, your moment of the week.
So my moment of the week is sorry, that was just really lovely what you said there, John. That was really nice. But my moment of the week was someone else saying something lovely and honest, was Stormzy, speaking out, I think in GQ magazine, about the way that so many lies have been told about Jeremy Corbyn, just speaking the truth and being honest and brave. And already the reaction he's had on social media, the lies about Jeremy Corbyn have become so very widespread, that I'm sure a lot of the people saying terrible things about Stormzy genuinely believe what they're saying by association. It's very sad, but I'm very happy that he was so brave and genuine and honest.
The Labour Party has come clean this week, hasn't it? And basically said that Jeremy Corbyn will never be allowed to stand as a Labour MP in Islington. That's the end of that. I mean, what do you reckon to that, Jane?
I think it's sad that the party that I saw as a vehicle for positive change has become something so toxic and nasty, and that they think it's acceptable to lie and bully in such a manner. It's very sad.
I agree. Finally, Mark, your moment. Thank you, Jane. God bless you. Your moment of the week, Mark.
Mine's got a bit of convoluted, but we'll do it. So yesterday was World Diabetes Day, because it was Frederick Banting's birthday, the 14th of November. He was the guy who derived insulin, and he made a brilliant quote when he actually patented it, because he only patented it for $1. And he said, "Insulin does not belong to me, it belongs to the world." Now, currently, insulin is price gouged in the United States. A vial like that, which is 10 milliliters, that lasts me about a week, would cost in the UK to the NHS about £10. In the US, it's $300. And if any of you watch Purple Heart, you will see the shocking things that happen with that. Now, with the raging dumpster fire that Musk has made Twitter with the verifications, a couple of comrades actually did some pretty cool stuff and actually made a Twitter profile for one of the companies that make insulin called Lilly, and they announced that insulin is going to be free from now on. Now that caused the share price of Lilly to literally plummet. And Lilly had to try and actually make various statements and say, no, we're not making our product for free. And basically they pulled all their advertising from Twitter, which is several $1 million. Now, another comrade made this brilliant comment, which I think is great. While this is a brutal indictment of the wealthy man Charles' lack of strategic vision, it is more of an indictment of how dependent pharma stocks are on brutally price gouging customers for critical medications. Because if I'm disconnected from my insulin pump for more than an hour from this, which is also ridiculously expensive, one of these should cost £3,000 to buy from you, and basically one of the companies were wanting us to bounce a balloon. Well, why not stop? And so they donate €5. Well, Medtronic, stop. That's all nice, but make the pumps a little bit cheaper than £3,000, please. But anyway, as they say, that as Liam said, because if I don't have insulin for more than 2 days, I'm dead. Basically, I'll go into a coma by the end of the first 24 hours, and then I will be dead by the end of that. And people are having to go, you in America use dog insulin and something called Walmart insulin, which is worse than some of the early derivatives that Banting made. So it's just thought I'd bring all that to you, and this could happen in the UK with the way that certain people are playing. And if any of you've seen the Milk the Cow podcast on there, talk about what Starmer and Streeting have got as backers from the private medical companies, one shudders to think.
Thank you, Mark. As people will know, my wife was diabetic, and she got one of those, eventually, one of those patches on her arm, revolutionized her control. But we had to buy it at first, and it was £50 a kick, and it lasts a fortnight. And sort of, I mean, there's been a scandal recently where some chap says that he put up the price of some medication or other massively. He says, my moral duty is to the shareholders, not to the public.
Mm-hmm.
And when it reaches that, you see capitalism for what it is, an absolute evil. Thank you very much indeed, Mark. Sort of all strength to diabetics. And missed World Diabetes Day. So I apologise to all the people who've got diabetes. Jane, you pointed out something that Mia said earlier on.
Yeah, I thought Mia's comment was lovely, and well done, Mia. She's submitted a paper to the British Journal of Social Work, and it's been accepted and will be published. And it's really lovely to comment. It's thanks to support I've received on platforms like this that's given me the confidence to attempt the project. That's really lovely to hear.
That's right. Speak out, Mia. God bless you. Mia has been a member of the show on occasions, and sort of we're big fans. I might. Some lovely person from Bishop Auckland. I'm from Newton Aycliffe. I'm watching from Bishop Auckland. It says Tian and Burke. I'm a pharmacist. Have been watching the farmer news on insulin this week. Bernie Sanders has been lobbying against insulin monopoly in the US with a degree of cut through. That's great. Of course, Bernie Sanders was the US Jeremy Corbyn. And when are people going to listen? It's not the person that matters, but the ideas for what they stand. Moment of the I've got a moment of the week, if I can share mine just very briefly. Sort of Neil Lawson from Compass. At last, somebody has spoken out about the corruption, the manipulation going on in the Labour Party selections. And absolutely outspoken letter condemning what has been happening and appealing to Keir Starmer and David Evans to make the party a broad church that accepts a variety of ideas and to stop persecuting people who have different ideas to them and actually cheating to deny them a chance of being an MP. You can sign a petition. There's a petition associated with it. If you go onto my Facebook page, I've put the link up there for you to do. Absolutely the case. It's sort of, it's absolutely blatant what they're doing. They could not give a damn. So thank you, everybody, for your moments of the week. And time to move on.
Now it's time for the big story.
Jackie Nash, God bless you. Be careful with those hypos. Diabetic too, type 1 diabetic. Right, a big story today is rather relevantly, the NHS in all its woes. Let's start with the strikes that are going to happen there. Paul, what's going on? Explain everything to us.
So NHS nurses have been given a real terms pay cut because remember when all the nurses caused a world financial crisis in 2008 and then they had to do an austerity to punish them for the things that they'd done. Oh, hang on, no, that was Rishi Sunak and his mates, wasn't it? They're the ones who caused the world financial crisis through greed. And then the Tories used that as an excuse to do an austerity because they believe in a shrunken state and they chose ideological austerity even though it was economically illiterate to do so. And it's caused pain and suffering for a lot of people. Lots of people have died from austerity and people have basically said enough is enough. We are balloting for strike action because meanwhile the Tories have been given free rein to do other things such as create massive inflation because they decided to give lots of money to very rich people during the coronavirus crisis, or they certainly didn't tax it away after we found out the economy was entirely broken, which we already knew anyway. So that is the situation the nurses find themselves in. There's been a lot of debate online. I've seen some people, like from especially the Labour right, which is really weird, saying, aren't nurses on £44,000 a year average, meh? And things like that. No, they are not. No, they are not. And I think we need to stop doing these things. So what they're doing is they're looking at places like Reed Consultancy Firm, which is saying, you can earn £44,000 on average if you go through our recruitment agency and work in the private sector. But they don't. It's not true, is it? People don't earn that much. And even if they did, you know what? They're worth every penny. So yeah, really interesting. Just a slight aside from this, and I might be able to elaborate a little bit further in other questions. But a friend of mine was talking to a nurse today. His father is really unfortunately in a difficult position in hospital. And he spoke to a nurse who said, "I don't want a pay rise. I want more staff to come in and help." Because my job is so difficult, we have so little resources, we're working extremely long hours, we're expected to do overtime for nothing, and the problems, they deserve a pay rise, and I'm not arguing that they shouldn't have that, but I'm also arguing that we need more staff, and a lot of those people were from places like the Philippines, who are willing to come and work here. And yet we've got these racist immigration policies that are saying, oh, well, we're going to somehow magically fill all the NHS jobs with British-born people, which is simply not going to happen because the planning hasn't been there in order to make sure that we train and prioritise, because all our talented people are told to go and make Facebook algorithms to make people buy more stuff or go and make loads of money in the city, rather than saying what's important to our society, caring for people, looking after people. And the job of working in the NHS has lost a lot of prestige as well. So it's not just like poor recruitment, it's also poor, priorities from a country. So yeah, it's a big old mess.
I'm going to come to you with this. I'm sorry, Jen, I was going to go to you. I'm going to read this. You mentioned the Labour right. I put enough post which said I support the nurses. I support the striking nurses, and I had a complaint from a member of the Labour Party, and I'm going to read what that person said. I don't mean in any way to demean this person. I'm going to put this an idea, and I'm going to put it to you, and I want you to respond to the idea and what you think of that idea. He writes, as a party, our leader has consistently said that we support the human rights of any person or union who wants to withdraw their labour. He's quite right, we do. But we cannot afford to take sides in any particular dispute and allow the Tory media the opportunity to smear Labour as the puppets of the trades union movement. Now, what do you reckon to that argument, which says that we can support the right to strike in general, But when it comes to any specific case, then we've got to be neutral, because it'll do us damage electorally.
So this is the problem with extreme establishmentarians, formerly known as centrists, but that's not true. They're not centrists. They don't have centrist policies. They're not halfway between the left and the right. They are extremely right-wing with regards to their economic policies. So there's not centrists at all. So I call them extreme establishmentarians. Now the problem with their ideology is they'll say, "Oh no, we can't go and support these people. We can't do that. We can't do." Now, economically, it's a really good idea to pay people well, who are going to spend money in their local economy, because that will stay. Like rich people, at least a third of their wealth is transported out of the country. This is statistically accurate. Whereas people who are not as wealthy spend the vast majority locally, which means more money stays in your local economy. So just purely from that point of view, if you're looking from an economic point of view, you want to pay people a decent wage, right? Okay, and we can say, people would say, "Oh well, that might cause inflation." Well, inflation's being caused anyway, so clearly that is not what's driving inflation at all. The other thing is as well, the Tories will always look after their class. They will always go out to bat for what they really, really believe in. Now, the Labour Party and the left wing is supposed to be about going out to bat for workers. And maybe somewhere in between, maybe there'll be some sort of natural equilibrium if you've got like dark side, light side, and there'll be some sort of natural equilibrium in the middle. But the problem is, the extreme establishmentarians always argue from a compromised position. They'll go, "Oh, hang on, we'll do the compromising before we stand up for the people who we represent." We'll go there. So if that's like one side and that's the other, if we go right to the middle and then we go a little bit further and we'll meet them halfway between where we've already gone halfway. This is a problem that we have. And if they're the real truth is, they don't want what's best for workers. They've got rich donors who are just as interested as the Tories in making money. Watch Milk the Cows podcast from tonight about the interest that the Labour Party people who are in charge of it at the moment, including the Shadow Health Secretary Wes Streeton, the interest they have in a privatised NHS, in private companies profiting from the NHS. Watch it, please do. And someone might put that in the chat links, because if you don't believe that is happening, there's evidence to support it. It is happening. The Labour Party do not stand for workers. Not anymore. Maybe they never did.
Thank you very much. And my own feeling is similar. What's the point of a Labour Party that, when it comes to it, doesn't support Labour? It's not a Labour Party at all, is it? It's absolutely pointless.
Maybe they should rebrand as management or establishment.
That's right, yes. It's bosses. Arse lickers. Leanne says Labour MPs should be on every single picket line, supporting every strike. They absolutely should take sides. I think, Leanne, I agree with you. There are some times where in the 1970s, there were these strikes where people went on strike because somebody had been disciplined for sleeping on the job, and they demanded the right to sleep on the job and went on strike. And they had that kind of, you can't, I wouldn't support that. But sort of nowadays, as Paul points out, these are people who are having to visit food banks because they earn so little. And they are so, no, it's not just pay, it's conditions of work and modernized, which means you've got to work a lot harder. And and we've paid the price of the Tories' chaotic economic policies for 12 years. It's time somebody else started paying that price, and that the workers of the country need not. Jane, another thing that gentleman said to me, which I'd like to run past you as an idea for maybe being more careful about whom we support and why should we support, is they pointed out that if the nurses, and it's just the nurses, if they get their pay rise, that money's got to come from somewhere, and it will come from other workers' pay packets, or from other areas of the NHS, because sort of I forget what they call the people who organise the general clinical councils or whatever they're called, they have a limited budget. And sort of if the nurses get more, there'll have to be cuts elsewhere. So ultimately, it's self-defeating in terms of the quality of care we get. What would you argue? What would you say to somebody who had that argument?
Well, I'd say that if that money did have to come from those other places, that would be a choice. That would absolutely be a choice. That budget doesn't have to be restricted to that extent. You know, we could just print a little bit more money and increase the NHS budget a little bit. Either way, when that money goes out, those nurses will pay PAYE and national insurance on it. So some of it will go straight back into the tax coffers. Then they'll go out and spend what they've got left in their local economies, which will go into local businesses, which will allow those to do better and be able to keep employing their staff. And the money goes around. I think there's been studies that have shown that if you put the money into workers' wages and it goes through the local economy, it multiplies itself several times in terms of the good that it does within the economy. So I would say that that's absolutely a choice, and it's not true anyway.
2 seconds, Jane. I'll come back to you. Jacqueline Hemmings, I wonder how many people are aware there's a difference between employees and workers in the UK. Workers don't have as much rights as employees do. Expand on that. Explain that a little bit more for everybody, Jacqueline. Thank you so much. So, Jane, why should we support the nurses?
We should support the nurses because the health service is breaking right now. The staff working in the health service are breaking. They've been through an incredibly traumatic period over the last few years, but that came after 10 years of underfunding through this ideological choice of austerity from the Tories, stretching resources within the NHS, cutting the nursing bursary, not enough new nurses coming through. There are so many vacancies in the NHS right now that just can't be recruited, and people trying to study to become a nurse often can't afford to feed their families. It's just not financially viable. So this situation is getting worse and worse. And if they don't take a stand, this is going to break in a very horrible way that's going to damage all of us. So in them taking a stand like this to try to do something to fix this situation, we all need to support them to do that so we can avoid the whole entire system collapsing.
Thank you so much, Jane. Finally, Mark, what can we do as individuals to support the nurses? Sometimes feel that you support various things like strikers, but is it any use at all? What would you advise people who came to you and said, "What can I do to support the nurses?"
I think the main thing is to say that you support them, be that on social media, be that in your conversations, because I think we've got to really be out there. I mean, we were talking about earlier about the Labour people who are saying we shouldn't physically go out and support them. That is because the only reason the Tories do that is because they smell the fear. We need to have 100% commitment to these people, going out and supporting the nurses, standing on their picket lines. Because as Eddie Dempsey said, when each company go out, we'll go out there and support them, and we should support, because one day our union's going to need the support, and we need to support everybody like that. Let's not forget, when you go on strike, you are not paid by your company. It is classed as unpaid leave, and some unions will have quite big strike funds, but often as well, some of them don't. So, and there will be solidarity funds, so giving to those. But just talking about it, explaining the issues, explaining that if you do not get with inflation pay rise, you are in effect getting a pay cut. And I think it was said that the nurses are over 20% down on where they were in 2010 because of the effect of inflation. And as we've already said about people wanting more nurses, if these people are tired, they'll make mistakes. Could that be a few extra units or something which could be dangerous? Do you want to have that risk? But we must support them. So go out on the picket lines. tweet your support. I take it that's what you were doing on Facebook, putting up an Enough is Enough poster. Put those up. I want to go and have a look for that and see if the West Midlands has got one as well. And also join solidarity rallies. I know there was one in Staffordshire. Unfortunately, because of this, I had to pull out of that earlier. But just stand there and be there and show support. One of the things we've been doing in the West Midlands with other strikes is physically going out on picket lines and standing with them.
Yeah. I mean, I went down to join the CWU on one of their picket lines, and I was ashamed of how delighted they were to welcome me, and how much they appreciated the spot. I mean, the other thing you can do is put a poster up in your window.
Yeah.
Sort of, I put a poster up saying, "Don't deliver mail to me on the post office on a straight day." Thank you very much, Mark. God bless you. We support the nurses here, and you made a really good point, and one that the Labour Party needs to understand. Because if we don't support them when they need support, how the hell do we expect them to support us when it comes to the election? And they'd be absolutely justified in saying, "Well, you didn't support me, so I'm not going to support you." Absolutely short-sighted. Joanne G, it's a deliberate act to destroy the NHS. Absolutely, Joanne. Yeah, absolutely. To reduce it to a chaos so we can sell it off and claim that would be better. Mark, will paying the nurses more solve the NHS's problems?
Not entirely. It needs more funding, but it would certainly make their lives a lot better. They are one of the most important people in the country. I'm trying to remember the exact quote from I think it was Owen Jones's Chavs, but they said if one day all the investment bankers, CEOs, and everything didn't turn up, then the world would carry on as it would before. But imagine if the nurses didn't turn up. Now, one thing, I think it was Jane spoke about how they have to do unpaid overtime. With nurses, they're one of these professions that if, say, somebody doesn't turn up, it actually they have to carry on working. They have to wait for the next person to come in, to cover the actual shift.
I'm going to ask Paul. You have something to say there?
Yeah, it's just to elaborate on something that you asked there about, like, will it solve the problems of the NHS? And Mark talked about more funding. I think what's really important to talk about what funding is and what it does. So, there's always more money going into the NHS, and every single government puts more and more money into the NHS. But it's not about how much money goes in, it's about where it goes and what it gets used on. So money is extremely useful as a lubricant to make people do stuff. And that's what's important, working hard. And the NHS will be fixed with a lot of hard work and a lot of people doing that. If we want to fix the NHS, we need more personnel in there. We need people caring for our ill people. We need people in the care service. We need those people to be well paid, and one of the ways to do that is to fund it properly. But what currently is happening with our money is seen as its own thing and its own commodity. So what's happening is you're getting a lot of private extraction of wealth from the NHS, whether that's like outsourcing of things like cleaners and stuff, and people will take that money out, and then they say, oh, we're going to need more money for this, or we're going to need more money for this computer system, or we're going to need more money for managers, we're going to need... No, the reality is we need to work really, really hard, and the way to get people to work hard is to pay them well, rather than have that wealth extracted and taken to the Cayman Islands, because that is all that's happening at the moment. Money isn't a thing, it isn't real. Work is real, resources are real, and money is supposed to stand for those things, but money doesn't stand for work anymore. If you work hard, you will not earn anywhere near as much in your lifetime as someone who is already wealthy will earn from their wealth. And this is something we really need to get our heads around as a country.
Absolutely correct. I mean, I think the reason I asked the question was that there's a huge number of things wrong with the NHS, and paying the nurses is only one part. Properly is only one part of the solution. And I just bring you to Neil Terry's comments in the. We need to talk about integrated care boards. That has split the NHS into 42 separate companies competing against each other, and there's so much else. A number of people agreeing with you, Neil. Labour no longer wants our support. They don't care about our support, and they're going to find out when they start to campaign what happens when they abandon their activists. The Tories refused to take the NHS off the table in the trade deal, and Mia Mantra, it's clear that nurses don't go into the profession for the money. But they do deserve to work in a profession which actually gives a damn about the people they care about. Okay, let's move on. Other stories. I think the comment of the quality of comments tonight is especially good. Thank you so very much indeed. Some really corking comments coming. Keep them coming, please, people. Tiana, I forgot to read out yours about healthcare professionals seeing their peers leaving the professions, leaving the country altogether. Those remaining pick up the extra workload and the stress that causes and the danger of making a mistake under stress. Thank you so much for those comments. Absolutely corking. Jane, G20. What is it? What's happening?
So I've been learning about this today. So the G20 is 20 world leaders, presidents, and prime ministers of leading powers around the world have met in Bali, and they're discussing worldwide issues like food insecurity, the energy price increases, climate change, and the situation, the Russian aggression on the Ukraine at the moment, which I think obviously has been quite a big topic. I was looking up about this today, and they didn't. Bali, I think, was asked to not invite Russia, and they decided that they wouldn't do that. They did invite Russia, although Putin hasn't come and he's sent his foreign minister instead. But what they did instead was invite Ukraine as a guest, and I actually thought that was a very good way to handle this situation, because as terrible as this is and as hateful, the actions of Russia, and as unjust as they are, we're not going to come to any sort of solution to end this and to stop people being killed and to stop the terrible situation in Ukraine if we don't talk, as difficult as those situations are. So I think there was I was reading China's there, and I think there's some confusion, or there's some people aren't sure whether China's going to come out now and condemn Russia over the aggression in Ukraine, because I think until this point they have been careful with their words around this, and I think the feeling is there's going to be a statement made about the aggression in Ukraine at the end of this summit, and I think the wording's been agreed that it will say that most of the members condemn the aggression, not all, but most.
If they've got China to come off the fence, that is a real achievement. It's been said, Jane, that this is one of the most tense G20 summits for a long, long time. Would you agree with that?
It does sound like it is tense. There's some very frightening things on the agenda. So they're going to be, I don't think they have yet, but they're going to be, I think, voting on whether it's appropriate to use nuclear weapons. Don't know if I've used the right words there, but obviously Russia's vote on this is critical because it's very poignant at the moment, and it's not so much a hypothetical question now as potentially a direct indication of the intentions or the belligerence of that state at the moment. And I think also the grain deal that's been struck to allow the Ukraine to export some of their grain, which is important for so many countries and for food stability around the world, that expires on the 19th of November. So if this summit goes in a very bad direction, that could have implications for that and some terrible results for a lot of people around the world.
Thank you, Shane. Mark, I mean, all I see at this G20 summit is tensions. The US and China are on the verge of conflict over Taiwan, and they set red lines which cross over. The US is saying that if China attacks Taiwan, then that's a breach of one of their red lines. China has said that even to say that is a breach of one of their red lines. You've got Sunak saying that Putin is a pariah, and yet sort of they're refusing to. Some people are refusing to talk to Saudi Arabia, who definitely doesn't agree with that. Sort of, I mean, at the end of the day, is this just showboating and all worthless, or do these summits have a function of any use at all?
I think they probably do have a function, and it's like also we've just COP's obviously just finished, and it's not so much what happens in the main meeting hall. It's the back room and other deals that happen at the same time. You know, there's all this talk about America and China, but Biden met the leader of China, and whether that was just staged, and we won't know. We'll have to wait.
Sorry, I was just saying lots of smiles, but
Yeah,
no progress.
but you know, one wonders what is happening in the background, especially as there have been all these recently, all those cruise missiles that have hit Ukraine from Russia, and apparently a couple have hit Poland. Now that which I think, I know we were not going to talk about that, but there is rumours that at least two cruise missiles have hit Poland. Now that technically mean whether that would be classed as an act of aggression against a NATO member as well. I think we have to be very worried at this stage, but I just wish we had better people in place. Could you imagine if it had been Sanders and Corbyn there rather than Sunak and Biden?
Yeah,
we need those two. The world needs those two. We made one heck of a thing, and imagine the difference they could have done in those kind of talking areas. Yeah, it's a nice talking shop, but some things do happen, and often we won't know for years.
Do you see us escalating up into a Cold War, or are we there already de facto?
I think we're possibly there already. I mean, it's just what's going to happen. Remember now, Putin is a wounded animal, and wounded animals do strike out. And what they could be, I've even saw once on a YouTube channel about an argument that one way Putin might try and cause a diversion, because apparently he's running out of bullets. He's having to get in bullets from North Korea and also from Iran, but that's obviously alleged at the moment. But there was one argument, one military strategist suggested that he could fire two missiles at the UK with about 10 targets, not to completely knock us out, but to cause a humanitarian disaster that would cause the world to divert from Ukraine. I can't remember. I would love to find that video again, but it was quite scary when you looked at it. If you're in, I feel sorry for Cap, because several of them were aimed at London in that video. The strategist was thinking, but we can't say it is. Strategists can only guess, and it's trying to predict the economy.
The G20 has said that it's going to concentrate on global health, economic recovery, and sustainable energy. Have you heard of any of that at all?
Nope.
No.
Wouldn't it be great just to go back to this insulin for all? Wouldn't it be great to try and stop the price gouging? You know, that would be great.
If we had actually governments that actually did things for their people.
rather than the businesses.
instead of showboating in beautiful places. One thing I noticed, have you noticed that they always have these things in places like Bali and not in Barnsley? So when they have a G20 meeting in Barnsley, then I'll think, oh, we begin to make progress. Paul, how do you think Rishi has done? Is his first outing onto the world stage? How do you think he's performing?
He fits right in with a bunch of really, really unimpressive world leaders that are there. The parade of he appears to fit in. You know, you've got the Saudi Arabian royal family represented. Like that's pretty bleak, isn't it? You've got like Biden who went along and instead of talking about things that were world issues, boasted about how brilliant their democracy is because the Democrats did okay-ish in the midterms, which shows that America is democracy, like not that it is democratic, that it is democracy. And he waxed lyrical about that for quite a while when you're meant to be talking about world issues. You've got Modi there. You've got Modi who's like performing terribly racist acts on his own people in India. You know, you've got Macron who's like alarmingly anti-Muslim in in France. And you know, like these people are not inspirational figures. You look at our world leaders and you think, what has happened here? I found something interesting that Gordon Brown said earlier on. I think I saw Mark had replied to it on Twitter, and he said, "There's no longer such a thing as an international community." So said a prominent African leader, aware that along with the UN, the IMF, and COP27 and G20 will fail to address the world's multiple crises. So what's the solution? And he goes on to say, now politics drives economic decisions, and it's nationalism that has replaced neoliberalism as the dominant ideology. I guess the implication there is that neoliberalism good, nationalism bad. Now, I would argue that neither of those things are particularly helpful. And neoliberalism is the cause of this, and it's one of the reasons why we've got such uninspirational leaders in the world at the moment. So, yeah, I guess he fits in. He did a really big death stare, didn't he? Apparently at the Russian representative, Lebrov, was it? That was there today. He did a death stare at him. So yeah, Rishi Sunak, hard man.
I mean, so the Guardian thinks that he's trying to show that he's as keen as Boris was to support the Ukraine, and that's the cause of his showboating on the.
Electorally, that's huge, isn't it? Because I've never seen so many people flock to a cause than the Ukraine, you know, and we want there not to be a war. That's absolutely vital. We want there not to be a war. But there's war in Yemen, and there's war in Palestine, and there's war, you know, around the world in all sorts of global conflicts, and we need to address all of them. But Ukraine seems to be the one that they can pump a lot of money into and say, well, we've done enough.
The last thing, Paul, that they were asking Sunak about whether Britain's international reputation had been dented by Liz Truss in the events of the last few weeks. And he thinks the answer was sort of slightly. Would you agree with him on that?
Yeah, I think Britain's reputation has been damaged a lot. It depends what you mean. Like, you know, are people finding like certain countries it'll have damaged them with, and certain countries it'll have been, well, that's just Britain for you, isn't it? You know, like colonists. You know, there's a lot of people who Britain isn't particularly popular with, and it would be very difficult to damage Britain's reputation with a lot of countries because they already have a poor reputation with a lot of countries. And we've had years and years of this behaviour. You know, I think a lot of countries in the Middle East would have a very low opinion of the invasion of Iraq. So whether or not it's hugely damaged the reputation in that respect, obviously we don't even look competent at the moment because we did kind of some funny things. Trussonomics was a bit weird, but Yeah. So yes, it's damaged our reputation with the USA, but I think people would rather a slightly weaker Britain, and way down the pecking order with regards to powerful countries at the moment, I believe.
Neil Terry, no one has a higher opinion of Britain than the British. And probably true on that. Right. Last question I asked. I'm going to ask mates. We're going to have an awful budget on Thursday. They're warning us of how awful it is, which is a sign of how awful it's going to be. We're all going to be worse off. More taxes for everybody. It's going to be fair but compassionate, but it's going to be hard hitting. So, what I thought I'd do is I'd ask my guests to just say what they would like to see in a budget which accepts the economic problem. I'm talking too long, but the economic problem is this, that the way that we get inflation down makes people poorer and damages the economy. But if we make people richer and get the economy going, the danger is that those things set inflation up. So how do you balance those two sides? So within such a situation, I ask my guests to come up with something nice they'd like to see in the budget, and then we'll see how he does on Thursday. Mark, what would you like to see in the budget?
Oh, something nice. I think I'm going to have to change my answer but I would say a pilot of a universal basic income for some people. It has been said that if a universal basic income was to replace our benefit system, it would cut it in half, and some people who don't realise that it would really help them is self-employed people. And a universal basic income is not loads of money. It is the basics you need to survive. So if you are sick and you wouldn't normally get sick pay because your company doesn't pay you, you get the UBI. Or if you want to go on holiday, you get that basic money. So that's the main thing I would say, a trial of a universal basic income in the UK. Obviously, there is the one that Mark Dreyford's doing in Wales, but let's get it in the whole of the UK. There have been small ones doing in London, which found it saved money when they gave homeless people a universal basic income, and it got a lot of them off the streets.
Thank you so much. Universal basic income. Jane, Mark fancies UBI. What do you do? UB40? No, what would you like to see?
There's so many good things we could do that would just transform things and make things a lot better. I'd say big investment in public services that will pay off so much. What they're going to do is going to starve the economy and make things 10 times worse for most of us. If we invest in public services, provide decent jobs and improve infrastructure, there's so much payoff from that in so many ways, and we can work towards reducing climate change as well at the same time. So that's a really big one.
Is there any way you could invest in public services without hyperinflating the economy?
I think it doesn't really matter, I don't think, what inflation is, as long as everyone's got enough, to survive and to be comfortable. Inflation is just a number written down at the side. So, if it's a higher number, but everyone's got enough, surely that's better than thinking, well, isn't that a nice, shiny, low number, but lots of people are starving to death, but we've got a really nice number written down. I don't understand the obsession with inflation. I do understand it impacts mortgage rates, but we had higher mortgage rates back in the 1990s, and although things were very difficult for some people, we're in a very different situation now, where even a much lower number just has devastating implications, because the housing market's been inflated to the state where house prices are tens of times the average salary, and so it's just unsustainable.
Paul, what would you like to see? I have to share with you both. I don't think we're going to see that in Thursday's budget. Either of your dreams. Paul, what would you like to see?
I'd like to see a raft of measures to deal with wealth inequality. I'd like to see a massive, massive inflation of wages, which would bring back into balance the price of houses and things like that, and at the same time have a huge land value tax for those people who are doing things like land banking, which is more valuable. Like, so you just buy a plot of land, keep it empty, and because land value goes up so much because of the way housing inflation's gone up and private debt and so on, so I'd deal with that with a land value tax, and I'd also. I'm moving away from UBI. I'm more of a job guarantee person because there's so much to do. I would say a well-paid job guarantee instead of a minimum wage, and these would be highly, socially useful jobs, basically. So we need our economy to move away from bullshit jobs to socially useful jobs, because far too much, you saw what happened during the pandemic. Loads of people's jobs didn't get done and nothing happened. Nothing bad happened when they weren't doing the jobs. We've got a lot of workforce there to do something wonderful, and they would feel so much better about themselves if they were going out and doing things that were useful, like helping their community, building things in their local community that would improve their environment. We also have massive projects to do. Like, we need to improve the national grid, because we can talk all we want about climate change and bringing in solar panels and wind turbines and stuff like that. Wind turbines, they have to shut them off when the wind's above 20 miles an hour because the national grid can't handle the power surge. Our national grid needs investment, and we need clean water, so that our water and sewage works need huge, huge investment. That investment would go into people's pockets, because remember, public debt is private sector wealth, and as long as you're controlling that wealth and making sure it stays fairly balanced throughout society rather than concentrated in one place, that's a good thing. Investment is a good thing.
Just talking reality though, if you were to pay people an awful lot more, wouldn't that price us out of world trade?
No, you just get a one-time price, you'd get a one-time currency reevaluation. It wouldn't really necessarily affect us massively. So what you could do is, if all of a sudden, house prices, because the value of your wage means that all of a sudden house prices are back to 4 times a yearly salary rather than 30 times a yearly salary. So you're going back 30 years, that was what it was, and people could afford houses. Now people can't afford houses. So we need to somehow balance that. So a one-time devaluation of your currency that would just happen once, and then it would be like, okay, right, well, you might not be able to buy as many euros with a pound anymore, but you've got loads more pounds. So really, it doesn't matter if you've got loads more pounds. So yeah, we're gonna have to do something, because everything is an utter mess.
Neil Terry wants the government to give more money to wealthy people and big corporations like those struggling energy companies.
Granted, said the fairy godmother Jeremy Hunt.
So I suspect that you may get your wish. I suspect of all the ideas, that will be the only one that comes with it. Neil is going to spend tomorrow, Thursday, chasing after Sir Nigel Gresley. So best of luck there. That's it, people. Doesn't an hour go quickly when you've got wonderful people to listen to? And fabulous this week. Fabulous. I got into trouble last week because I said that one of the people commenting was just being silly. And Paul told me off and said, nobody says silly things. I love everybody's comments, but it's silly. This week, fantastic comments. Well done to you. You're the stars of the show. Alongside my 3 wonderful guests. Say goodbye, Mark. Thank you so much, Mark. You've just been brilliant. God bless you. Thank you for standing in. The always wonderful Jane Strange. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you for having me.
And now, you know what happens is that Paul twitters on a bit, now, and so you can turn off really, go make a cup of tea. I'm going to say goodbye to you now. And all right, just after, because you feel sorry for him, listen to what he's got to say. Bye-bye, everyone.
Okay, everyone, come back tomorrow for our podcast with the MMT podcast. So we've got the MMT podcast on modern monetary theory, seeing if that is going to be a useful thing for the left. You can agree with it, you can disagree with it, but you're going to learn about it tomorrow if you join us at 7:30. That would be absolutely great. You can join Socialist Think Tank, you can donate to us. That would be really, really appreciated. There are links on the website when you become a member. So go to socialistthinktank.com. You can buy some nice merchandise like this hoodie that I'm wearing that's got Socialist Think Tank on the back as well. It's really nice. You can get one of those if you want to. That helps fund the channel and gives you some nice clothes for the winter if you can afford it. We've also got a lovely t-shirt with John's face on it, and some other pro-Palestinian ones and Ken Loach ones and all sorts of other really, really nice gear. So have a look on our store online, and if you want a new t-shirt and you're in the market for one, then go and get one, or get some stickers and things like that. It all helps. Please do subscribe to us on all our social media channels, and please, please, please have a lovely night, because there is so much depressing news in the world. It's really nice to know that there are people like our viewers in it. Okay, have a lovely night, everyone. Take care, and we will see you all very, very soon.
God bless. Thank you. Bye-bye.
We'll keep the red flag flying here.